If we were to watch your life as a movie, would it be interesting? I mean, we all kind of hope so. Well, my guest today has a story that's honestly more interesting than any Jerry Bruckheimer movie. One day I imagine we'll probably end up seeing part of it on silver screen if he gets around enough. Aaron Young has lived a crazy story and he wants to help you in your life with what he's discovered on his journey. So let's get into it today. Be better tomorrow because of what you do today. Guys, welcome to the Fallible Man podcast. My name is Brent, and this is your home for all things man, husband, and father. And I'd like to welcome Aaron Young to the show today.
Brent, thank you, my friend. It's a pleasure to be here. It's very humbling to hear that intro. You made me nervous. I'm not usually a nervous man. Sweaty palm, literally. So it's just because it's humbling. So thank you very much for the intro. Almost popped a tear even.
You're joining us today from Brisbane, Australia. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so for reference, for all of us who don't know the world real well, where is Brisbane in Australia?
Okay, so basically I'm on the east coast of the country of Australia, and I'm up towards the northern side of that east coast. So I live on a place called the Sunshine Coast, and it literally is because it's sunny all the time, all year. And I'm not rubbing it in, guys. And I'm 30 minutes from the beach. Heaven on earth. Very grateful for it too.
Great chance to do some research and look at some of the stuff you put out. I looked at your YouTube channel and found that today, looking for some of your videos. And I read the incredible story on the app we used to meet up and set up this interview. But I'm a horrible podcast host because I don't think that really actually introduces people. I can read off credentials all day and my listeners are like, So tell our listeners, who is Aaron Young in your own words? Who do they meet? What do they know about you?
Oh, wow. I've been trying to write this. You know why? Because I've been trying to write this. I'm trying to do this PR thing and this media thing, which I'm just not a very good self-promoter. And you try to write my life into a condensed version. I'm going to use some terms here which I'm not really comfortable with, but I think so. So I'm a survivor of early childhood trauma at the hands of my mother and abductor. I then went on to turn these experiences into a lot of fear and anger, which I think many men turn fear into anger if they've been through a situation like that. Then turned criminal, then turned drug addict, then cleaned up, then turned drug addict again, then learnt that my biggest addiction was relationships and women, and actually not drugs or alcohol. But then I turned explorer, and then I left Australia 2009. I traveled the world, Middle East and Africa, became a conservationist purely by accident. I'm an elephant and lion behavior specialist. I'm a farmer, which is another new one you could throw in there as well. So what are we up? We've got criminal, conservationist. And as we know, in the end, after farming, I became a fugitive. So firstly, I was chased by authorities. Then I did 2 prison stints in Africa, 2 separate prison stints, jumped borders illegally in between 2 countries to see my kids. Yeah, and now I'd say I'm a life coach or a mentor. I'm not really comfortable with that phrase. I'm a guy who turns all that stuff into gold for others. I want to inspire action in people's lives. I'm a little bit tired of seeing a lot of the books and the podcasts that basically talk and encourage us to talk. And what my idea of this is, no, I want you to get up off your ass. I want you to listen to something and go, you know what? I'm inspired to take action, because in my life it was when I took action that the things changed.
All right. Well, that actually got into more of your story, but I was looking for, who are you? Like, I mean, you're Aaron Young, right? But who is Aaron Young? You're everybody's a product of their experiences. I mean, we definitely are. But today, who are you? Why should people listen to you? You have an incredible story. But what makes you you?
Geez, you put me on the spot there. This is where I'm not very good at this. This is where you ask me to look and really talk about what I value in myself. And what I value is I'm an incredibly courageous and humble person who was gifted with an incredible set of life experiences that I turn into the positive. So everything I just rambled off that was a little brief expose on my life, I can stand up and talk to you about the benefit that every single one of those experiences gave me. And I turn the hopeless into hope. That is what I do. And I do that because I've been into those situations and I felt the hopelessness and I know the ways through it.
See, you're in trouble because I watched some of your YouTube videos earlier. I was watching the review on a men's weekend you did with older gentlemen from Northern Australia.
Yeah.
And talking about making them go in on themselves, actually. And so now I know you're capable of it. So I got to ask.
Yeah.
Because I know you can do it.
Yeah, and it is. And I'm glad it's what I need to do more of, because as I said to you, I'm very blasé about my life and I need to stop doing that, because if one thing adversity and challenge has taught me is that once I serve others with it, it becomes a life that is 1,000-fold. And I become a messenger, not through ego, but through sheer presence. And I think that's what we're here for, many of us. I mean, I know that's why you're here. That's what you're doing. And I'm still learning how to do that via things like questions like that, where you put me on my ass and then throw me off a little bit. Good. And I'm glad. I need it.
I didn't understand the reference to NTD at 4.
NDE, so near death experience.
Near death experience.
Yeah.
And then kidnapped at 5.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
And you even made a comment about it was a great thing that happened to you.
Yeah, it was. And this is what I do with experiences like this. So near-death experience, in a nutshell, was my mother was an addict, suffers from some pretty severe mental health issues. She had me very young, at around 18, and probably at the worst time in her life. I cried a lot. So in her words, she basically shook me till I stopped and then threw me on a bed and left me. She didn't come back for about 3 days. So I remember coming out of that. I don't remember the shaking, obviously. I don't think many kids at 4 remember sort of succinct depth to that. But I remember coming to and being hungry for those 3 days. So that's my first early memory. The abduction was a local kid in the area. I lived in the heroin capital of Australia, sadly. It was a pretty rough neighbourhood, who tried to molest me, abducted me, dragged me off into the bush, tried to molest me, didn't realise what he got himself into, and I fought like a cat. So that didn't happen, but he left me in the bush until late that evening. Came back and then threatened to kill me and kill my family if I ever told anyone. So the power in both of those experiences now at 47 is in how I see and perceive the world around me and perceive other people. For much of my life, though, understand it was a big negative, because I was hypervigilant. I was a mind reader. I was always looking to see a hidden purpose in everyone's words, in everyone's meaning, and their body language. I was always reading. So as you can imagine, when it came to people, it kept me distant. But when it came to the work I did and some of the jobs and some of the career choices, it was incredible, because I was 10 times your average guy. But it was certainly not a healthy way to live my life. Now, I'm able to use my perspective how I see the world, which is that I see the beauty in every single situation, because when you see death or when you experience the face of it very early, you take every moment as sheer pleasure.
So fast forward several years, right? And you said life of crime in your teens and drugs. And then you ended up in Africa, right? In South Africa, you said you started, and then you moved up to Zimbabwe. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And somehow became an accidental conservationist. We'll get to that in a minute. And in Africa, you went from conservationist to farmer to criminal because you weren't willing to play the corrupt game there with the government. And you went through to the Zimbabwe jail twice, in prison there.
Yeah, twice, yeah.
As the only white man in the country, or in the prison in that country at the time.
Yeah. Yep.
With a corrupt system trying to set you up till they finally end up having to drive you from the country.
Yeah.
And your children are still there.
Mm.
Seriously, man, your life is a movie. It's incredible. But you have this drive to help people with those experiences.
You can't. Yeah, you can't allow the stories or the things that happen to you to drive your life. So I can't take the early near death, the abduction. I can't take all these experiences and wear them as a blanket to become a victim, because then I become a dysfunctional member of society, and God knows we've got enough of that already. By embracing the situations, by being able to perceive them and see the positives in them, I become connected to the world around me, and I'm able to actually look at people in a sincere way and understand how they're feeling and what it is that they need to overcome their own story. So it doesn't matter whether it's a prison stay. It doesn't matter whether you got smacked as a child or whether you had a teacher that treated you poorly. It's not the volume or the height of the story that matters. It's how you look at it and how you use it. And so for me, my biggest motivation now is to show people that in hopelessness is a fallacy. This is a mental concept. Hope is basically how you think. Knowing if you're breathing, there is always hope. And what I think has happened is we've tend to come to a point in our existence where we give up hope very easily. And I'm the guy who steps in and reminds you that you're in control of your life, and it's the actions that you take today that, as we know, because what you do today, I'm just looking, you've just popped back on and I've got, tomorrow because of what you do today. And the truth is whether you say it your sentence or my sentence, it's exactly the truth. I've got a birthright that states I'm a walking example of what is possible, no matter what is thrown at you. How dare I not use it?
Have you considered, writing your life into a script and selling the movie rights?
Man, you know how many times I've been asked and how many authors have tried to come and get me to write a book. And, like I said, I'm not a self-promoter, and it's something that these podcasts I'm hoping will teach me to understand my story better. Because I think just in Africa, there's probably is a movie and a story. I just need to learn how to see it in that way. Because again, humility is my greatest strength, but also one of my greatest weaknesses.
Well, it's, marketing is a big weak point for me. I'm horrible at marketing my podcast because, J.K. Rowling said it really well in the Harry Potter series, where they're like, "But Harry, you're a wizard," and he's like, "I can't be a wizard. I'm just Harry." Right? I mean, I have this mentality about it myself. It's like, but I'm just me, right? No, I was just thinking I've seen some movies with much lamer plot lines, so yeah, and that might help your movement with some of the stuff you're trying to do, right? Added funds.
Oh yeah, it would. Look, for me, it would, because the truth is I'm on a mission now to really understand and visit, I guess, men's mental health. I mean, it was mental health for all people, but what I started to realize is that my story probably relates more to physical challenge in sort of the perspective of your average male than it does to your average woman. I translate men for women, but in my actions and my life, I probably work better with men. And, I think the idea of looking at what we're doing with the mental health system, which is basically just prescribing in the face of this pandemic, needs to be questioned. And I think it's people who've lived and challenged adversity, really got their hands dirty, who have the right to stand up and say, well, hang on a second, I can tell you that antidepressants aren't the long-term fix. And beta blockers are not the long-term. Sure, if they stop the cycle, great. But at some point, we need to take back ownership of our mental health. You can't dull the mind and expect to grow. It will keep you stuck and stable, but it won't allow you to grow. And what is our journey here for? Are we here to repeat the same day over and over again? Or are we here to launch ourselves every day into the prospect of learning something new, growing? And as you said, better dad, better partner, better businessman, better man, or, if the case may be, better woman. That's our aim. That's why I wake up in the morning. And if I carry all of this experience as a blanket around me that says, poor me, I'm a victim, then I am now pouring negative energy out into the world everywhere I go. Touch everyone with that.
We have far too many victims. I'm not sure how we got into this victimhood mindset that seems to be embraced these days. I've got to ask you, so you've traveled extensively. I didn't see much in your information about your time in the Middle East, but you've traveled extensively compared to most people.
Yeah, I spent most of my younger years in Asia, so Thailand, also South Pacific and Fiji, Kiribati, Tonga, and Laos, and then Cambodia, and then, the Middle East as well for a few years, and then most of Southern Africa as well, yeah.
So with all the world travels, I've got to ask, I'm a foodie. What is the most interesting thing you've gotten to eat in all your travels?
Oh, wow. Can I be honest about this? The most interesting and sort of the most horrifying at the same time probably was eating lion. Yeah, I mean, for a short time I worked in a hunting camp in Mozambique, and a client shot a lion, and in a hunting camp in Africa, you tend to have many different tribal backgrounds. Some of them will eat certain meats, some won't.
Mhm.
And one of the guys ate lion, and he brought it to me and said, "Do you want to try it?" And I was like, "No, I don't really want to," but I did. So it's probably the strangest. Zebra would be another one. It's an interesting one. Giraffe. Like I said, I'm not very comfortable sharing that, because if I look back at, I mean, it turned me into a conservationist at work, but when I look back on it, it doesn't make me comfortable to say I ate those animals, but it is the truth.
People want to. It's amazing how many people want to get away from the darker moments in their history, and just I've met so many people who are like, I regret that time, or if I could go back and change, I wouldn't change anything.
No.
I've made my share of mistakes, and I have some parts of my past that I'm not real comfortable with. But at the same time, all those moments contribute to who you are now.
Yeah, and we made a good point, comfort. We're both saying it, and then there's a really good word to hone in on here quickly, because when you're uncomfortable, you're being gifted an opportunity to learn. When you're comfortable, not a lot grows there. You have easy, it's easy, so you get up and comfort's cool because you've got everything you want, and you can repeat that same day in comfort forever. When you're uncomfortable, if you look back at your life, that was when you hit the T-junction and you went, shit, I'm going left this time. I'm not going to go back into that. So uncomfortable is good. And it's one of the things I teach men. I take them in the bush and I break them. In all word for life, I starve them and I push them, because in that discomfort, men start to see that primal side of them and understand how powerful they truly are. Doesn't matter whether you're tall, skinny, short, big, muscly guy, short, it doesn't matter. Power comes from in here. Stats you can't see in your chest. It doesn't come from in your muscles.
Well, we all are a product of the experiences, good and bad, but they all contribute equally. And so if you start to, I don't have to like everything I've chosen to do. You don't have to like everything you've chosen over your life, but it's brought you to where you are today, and the person you are and the person you're trying to be. And so people like, I don't, no, it's part of the whole package, because if you made one choice difference, you could be an entirely different person than who you are today.
And you don't have to be proud of it, but you can't disown it. You cannot disown it. And this is why, like I'll say, I'm uncomfortable in saying that I did it. But when you ask me the question, the truth is that was the strangest thing I've ever eaten. And no, I'm not comfortable. But then, like you rightly pointed out, I wouldn't be sitting here right now doing this podcast. I wouldn't have these beautiful children, albeit not with me. I wouldn't have this beautiful partner. I wouldn't be living in this beautiful part of the world during what is one of the craziest times in our history.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'd be in a country where people are still dying in hundreds every day, So, and I'm able to set something up, and I'm also able to do what I'm doing here, which is offer my experience to other people to give them some hope, or to rattle them and have them think twice about that ease and comfort, step into it and get a little dangerous.
So how do you accidentally start working in elephant lion conservation? Just, like detail here. I just,
Yes,
it doesn't seem like something you stumble into.
Well, I do stumble. This is the thing. I stumble, or I'm creative. I'm not quite sure the magic trick to how I create the things I do. But so I was hunting in Mozambique by accident. I went to do a farming project in Mozambique. That failed. And so I ended up in a hunting camp. So I ran this hunting camp for a while, and I was quite in love with the idea of, olden days hunting and these, explorers running across Africa. And what I quickly realized is that hunting in modern Africa is pretty much wholesale slaughter. The attitude is kill it before someone else does. And so what I was introduced to was this idea that there needed to be a stronger voice for conservation, one that wasn't attached to government and wasn't attached to big NGO, which is the not-for-profit guys. Mm-hmm. So I ran into a gentleman in his 70s who used to be a National Parks and Wildlife Officer in the Zimbabwe government. He was one of the last white gentlemen to leave government service. He trained me to be a tracker. He trained me to do game capture. So this was game capture, restocking national parks. I learned how to, immobilize, treat animals when they were sick, move them to different countries, cross-border, and that became my day-to-day. What happened was, as I did more and more of this and I got closer and closer to these animals, I started to see their plight. And I got involved, sadly, with the relocation of 8 young elephant to China from Zimbabwe. By accident. It wasn't something I was involved with the organisation of, but I was at the tail end of the logistics of it. And I saw these animals being shipped off. And it broke my heart, and it changed my idea and concept of what was happening in Africa with wildlife completely. I woke up 3 months later and decided to start saving animals for real. So I heard stories of animals being shot under PAC rulings, which is a problem animal control ruling in northern Zimbabwe. So I took the authorities to task and went to war with them and said, you can't continue to do this. I'm going to come up there and I'm going to find a way to teach these animals to stay away from town. If I can keep them out of the towns, will you stop shooting them? And they said, yep, sure, good luck with that. So we invented some systems to teach these elephants to stop their old migratory routes, stop coming into the town, because if you enter this town, you're dead. So we invented a chili resin and homemade PVC plastic guns, and we chased the elephants around the town shooting them with an incredibly potent chili resin which stuck to their skin and taught them not to come through town. And we were incredibly successful, and that's now used through about 4 or 5 different African countries. Then just by accident, what was happening is lions were being shot left, right and centre, because as soon as a lion kills cattle in Africa, it's considered a nuisance and a problem. So instead of them being shot, again, I stepped in and said, guys, let's move them. So I worked with teams of vets, and we would literally go in, trap them or mobilise them, bait them, so put a bait up and bring them in, and then immobilise them and move them to a new location to try and save them from being destroyed. So, I don't have any background in any of this. I literally on-the-job training. It was and taking advantage of opportunities. Someone said, do you want to do this? And I never said no.
That's incredible. That's one of those things, just like how, you included some pictures on your profile, and for the YouTube version of this, I'll add some of those in for our viewing audience where they can see that too. You had some great shots rescuing animals. Looked like you were transporting a lion in one of them, and working on an elephant that got caught in a snare in another one, which is just
and the thing is, there's beautiful stories. There's tons of footage as well. I shot a lot of it Sky News, and there's quite a few internet radio shows in the States that picked it all up, and it was all in this idea of giving these animals a voice, but also educating without throwing mud on any of the other not-for-profit organizations in the world. It's become an industry, and I started to see the damage that was doing to the cause in money, instead of it going to actually operations and helping these animals in the field or educating the locals to stop wanting to kill them. It was going into fleets of brand new vehicles, radio towers, a bunch of shiny looking stuff, but there was no actual work being done. And, I like to be a crusader. So, it was just one of those things I took on board, and I wanted to inspire my children at this point too. They were incredibly young, and I wanted them to be inspired by my actions, not by my words, which is, as soon as I was a father and a parent, this was the first thing I wanted to give them. Coming from my background, my idea was I can't tell them what to do, but I can certainly show them, because kids don't learn by what we say, they learn by what we do.
Aaron, you've had a lot of experiences to draw from, including some really rough events in your life. And we touched on those in the first part of the show, things that would crush most people, because we live in a society where victimhood is not only becoming more normal, but it's championed. I don't know why we're encouraging this behavior, but most people would crumble over just one or two of the things. I mean, being jailed in a foreign nation, being kidnapped, your life has just been one event after another. How did you develop the fortitude to be strong enough to be stronger than the situation you were faced with?
It's a beautiful question, and it changes. So I'll answer it from like post kids, because it did change. Because prior to that, I was motivated by survival, and this is, anyone who's faced early childhood trauma will know, you get wired and built to survive. And so those situations which we say could crush other people, for me, were almost part of my adrenaline addiction. It sounds crazy, but this is the whole idea that you attract and create what it is that you want. And because of those early childhood experiences, I think early on in life, this is what I was absorbing and bringing towards me. Once I had kids, though, that completely changed. I decided to drop the selfishness. And that was the life-changing moment for me. Up until I had children, I didn't have any responsibility towards anyone, and I kept people at enough of a distance that I never really owed them anything. So I was able to continue to move as I needed to, and as long as I stayed heart-centered or compassionate and kind, I felt it was okay to keep moving. Once I had my kids, though, I dropped the selfishness and I was forced to have a good hard look at myself. And what I'd done is, in a very corrupt way, I'd taken those childhood experiences and I'd used them to propel myself, and I'd created an immense amount of positivity. But the corrupt side of it was that I'd actually used them as a negative fuel inside me to be incredibly selfish, keep the world at a distance, and to just motivate me towards a never-ending series of explorations, adventures, and excitement. Well, once you have children, you can't live like that for many reasons. If you continue to, you're basically going to produce children who follow in your footsteps. But for me, what was most important was that I was now an example. Let's just talk, my daughter was the turning point from my daughter was born. I was the man she was going to look for later in life. And if you stop and you sink that in, and I'm addressing men here, but this could be male or female, this isn't about just being a man. I was the example that she was going to look up to. So it was very easy for me to look at all the situations that I was going through, and even the ones from the past, in a very different light now. I got that choice. Do you want to silently be that victim? Do you want to fuel yourself with these negative energies and drive yourself forward and show your kids that that's the way to live? Or do you want to stop dead still, turn around and look back and go through each one of those and learn to understand the positives and the benefits? Well, what's the positive to my mother doing what she did when I was 4 years old? I respect life in a heavy way. And when I look at a child, I understand how precious every single second of every single minute of every single hour of every single day is to a child's early development, because I was robbed of that. What did I get as a benefit from being abducted at the age of 5? I can connect with anyone with any story of trauma and look them in the eye and say, no, I've been there. Now, if that's not a benefit for me helping others in the world, I don't know what is. Because when you can truly empathize and connect with someone through, you can truly help them. If you try and teach someone from a place of book learning, or I read once about trauma sufferers and I can tell you this is what happens, you're not going to get very far. I can deal with these people from a place of understanding. What is the benefits to me being a drug addict at one point? Well, once again, empathy. And also, one thing drugs and alcohol will teach you is that when your knees are about to hit the floor and when you're on the bones of your ass and you've got absolutely nothing to look forward to, there is only one choice, and that is to move forward and up. Yeah, or slowly decay and die. So for me, I can turn every single one of these experiences into gold. That's my inspiration. And that's my offering to the world now. And it's something that I wake up every single day learning how to do better. It's the reason I do these podcasts. It's the reason I connect with anyone at any point, because I believe I was blessed with the life I've had, so that I can offer a sense of understanding for people who feel alone.
Guys, I want to dwell down on something he's saying right here, and that is perspective, right? I asked about fortitude. How do you choose to survive? And he chose to have the strength to survive because he gained perspective on the situation. And perspective is something I talk about a lot on my channel, but perspective is the difference between I'm a victim or now I can help somebody. I'm a failure or I'm a success. This didn't work or this did work, right? I mean, there's that famous quote, I didn't fail 1,000 times, but found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb, right? Thomas Edison. And it's perspective. Anybody else might have said, man, and failed. I failed and I failed. And I had a bad experience. I had an unpleasant experience. I had an uncomfortable experience. And instead of letting it break you had enough perspective to say, it can make me stronger. It can make me smarter. It can make me more capable to help people, more capable to help other lives. And a lot of people who have trauma tend to want to focus inward and be like, well, I need help. I need help. And instead you went, I can help others. I can offer other people comfort and understanding because of this. And that's incredible.
Yeah, the victim is selfish. And this is why I believe we live in a crumbling society. And I think it's why we're becoming more and more disconnected. I believe it's why we rely on screens, TV, evasion techniques, whether it's gym, drugs, alcohol, relationships, whatever it is because of that very reason. I think we're just trying to find a way to disconnect and be more and more selfish. And I think that this is what we need more community leadership, is people standing up and being selfless and having this idea that my life is to serve and give back. Because as a man, and I'm just speaking for myself here, that's the ultimate gift, is to be able to stand peacefully and stably with men around me in this community here and offer them a safe place that they can go back and look at their trauma. And remember, trauma, as you just pointed out beautifully, is about perspective. Someone can watch their dog get hit as a boy. Someone can get abused, and it can be the same reaction in their body. All right. This is not about who's got the biggest, baddest trauma. It doesn't work like that. Everybody is different. You know, I use glasses as perspective is a set of glasses. Now, another thing I want to quickly touch on, you can take those glasses off at any time, put another set on. Perspective is ever changing. Just because you've got a perspective now that you're a victim and that it feels hopeless and you're lost, in 30, 60, 90 days, you can flip that and you can relook at each one of those experiences and actually have them sounding exactly like mine do. It isn't a case of it's a dead end and you listen to us talk and it's like, oh yeah, this all sounds great, but I can't do that. I'm 45 now. It's too far. I've been doing this. I'm 47. I only started really working this shit out when I was 40. Yeah. So there is never a too late. Never, ever a too late. And the work and the things we do are simple, but you've just got to be prepared to, you know, as Brent said, alter your perspective. Take the glasses off.
And you brought up the point perfectly, right? You said a lot of things changed when you became a father, right?
Oh, yeah.
The old reasons didn't work. The old perspectives didn't work.
Yeah.
That is something, and it's an incredibly humbling experience when you become a parent, because it alters your perception of reality forever. No, I actually make, you said that I make a t-shirt. I told you, we were talking before the show started, that, you know, one of the things I do is make t-shirts. This one, the one you're wearing, I have one that says memento mori, right? The famous phrase.
Yes.
It says, but under it says, live your life as such that your sons want to be you and your daughters will accept nothing less than you.
It is. And man, oh, she said shivers through me. I can't believe anything's truer. And like for me, it's even more pertinent because my kids are stuck back in Africa. You know, when I had to leave at gunpoint when they deported me, I wake to these sorts of sayings, you know, because I'm literally being forcefully separated from those two children, and I don't get to be that daily father like I like to. So I send them videos every day, and I talk about the basics that I can at a young age about these sorts of things, because that, you know, that's probably my last hurdle in life that weighs on me, is how to be, I want to say the ultimate parent, because we're not perfect. No human is perfect, but I want to be the best damn version I can,
right,
for them. And then ultimately what I've learned over time is that needs to be for me as well.
This podcast was born out of that realization. I wrote a blog, I think I even did it as a podcast at one point, called Don't You Want to Be Superman? My goal in life as a father is to set the bar so high that my daughters will voluntarily not settle for subpar men. I want to set that bar just so stinking high that anybody they bring home has got to be halfway decent.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And and you know, some people would sit there and go, oh, you can't do that. Yes, you can do that. That is the way, because how we lead by example is how we affect the world around us, not how we talk. So you can tell your daughter, don't go with a guy that does this and don't do that. That's not the way it works. She's going to look at you, and if on the surface you pretend to be something and then behind closed doors you're something else, also understand that children see the world very differently, and you cannot pull the wool over their eyes. They live in a world that is driven by energy and connection, something that we've forgotten as adults. If you think that you're hiding something from your children, you better think again very quickly, because you are not hiding a single thing. If you're pretending, if you're lying, they know. And what you're teaching them is that pretending and lying is the same. It's like, for me, one of my greatest challenges is like we're talking about self-worth and this idea of my personal value. I'm very much keen to give and share my life and my experiences constantly, but I need to come back to myself and my own value at time, because I could be teaching my children to be people pleasers. Because if I teach them to give without giving to myself, that's a very dangerous place. They have to see us giving to ourselves. Otherwise, when are they going to stop to give to themselves? So there's this beautiful, opening and unraveling of what parenting is for me. And, for me, I think it's the greatest journey we get blessed with. I think being a parent, but I also think it can be the toughest to learn, because your children will face you with your greatest failures will pop up in their little faces at times, and you'll be faced with, when you yell at a child, usually you're yelling at yourself. This is the thing. And they are our greatest teachers. You said it before, and it's one of the most, it shows me a true man when he says something along those lines. When a man is prepared to say, my child is my greatest teacher, I know I'm dealing with a man of character.
And I can't even give with the old cliches of telling my children, stay away from guys with tattoos, piercings, and motorcycles. That's me. So, random question. In the last year, what purchase under $100 has the most positive impact on your life?
Oof, that's a good one. Wow. That's one of the best questions I've been asked. I was going to say my headphones so I could do these podcasts. Well, it probably would be, because before that, my audio jack on my laptop wouldn't work. It probably would be that, because I'm honestly learning so much from these interactions with people. And like you talked about perspective, the best way we can ever learn about our lives and how they can impact others, but also how they're driving our own decision making, is by speaking to people like you, to doing what we're doing right now. The more we unfilter the head and let it just pour out the mouth, the more we learn about what's truly driving us. So yeah, I'm going to say my headphones.
Okay.
With the microphone. Not very exciting.
Hey, I asked one guest, and he referenced a book that he read, and you know what? It's part of our perspectives, right? You find what has value to you as you start to weed through life. It's like what actually brings more value to my life, and that is so personal from person to person. So that's a perfectly legitimate answer. In our correspondence, you referred to that we're choosing to carry too much generational and societal junk. You want to expand on that some?
Yeah, it's funny because I meditated this morning, and ancestral trauma came up, the word. And I don't go into it too much because people get a little bit shy at this. When you say ancestral trauma, they go, oh, what are you talking about? They get really a bit off. And I was a bit like that myself until I realized what happens is, we're born of two people, mum and a dad. If mum and dad, as we've just been talking about, aren't the best examples, just for one of erring to the negative, they teach us a series of behaviors and beliefs that we then continue on, that then produces children who then continue on again. But each generation that does that stacks more of their junk on top. And sometimes we need to get to a point where we actually stop and say, what am I carrying that's not just mine from my life experience, but what am I carrying of my mum and dad's? And what were they carrying of their mum and dads? Because we need to understand that generationally, we know more about parenting than we ever have in our existence. Our mums and dads weren't bad people. My mum's not a bad person. My mum's mentally ill and has got some issues that she needs to deal with. She's not a bad person. She did the best she could. She suffered from heavy trauma when she was young. Now, my nana, her mother, she suffered the same. So the idea of ancestral trauma or ancestral junk is that we take ownership at a point in our lives where we say, what am I carrying that I'm going to pass forward to the next generation, the next bloodline, that isn't just mine, that it could be being passed down from parent, from grandparent, from great-grandparent. And am I going to own this moment enough to deal with it? And am I going to heal it by talking to those people if they're still alive? Talk to mum and dad about these things. Talk to grandparents about these things. Because all it really becomes about for me is just this moment of actually stopping and looking at children and saying, do I want them to carry this? Am I prepared to be honest enough about the things that I do? Because it's not about the things you say, it's about the things that you do. Am I going to be honest enough about those behaviors and face them? Am I going to be prepared to change? And it takes a hell of a lot of courage. And it takes a hell of a lot of fortitude to then step into that action every day, and for everyone's action steps are different. you develop them based on the person's personality. But it's an everyday thing. And the older I get, the more I realize if I don't work that muscle. So for me, it's not gym, it's breath work, it's meditation, it's, moving my physical body. It's taking time to actually look after myself. If I don't do that, I'm going to pass on to my children the fact that it's all right to give, and never actually look after myself. I don't want my kids to be people pleasers. I don't want people to take advantage of them. These are the sorts of examples I use because we've got those, those in us.
Today's episode brought to you by thefallibleman.com. That's right, it's us. Head over to www.thefallibleman.com and check out our blog, updated twice a week with new content and links to all of our social media offerings. Tag or search us at The Fallible Man or at Fallible Man on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and other social medias for daily content. While you're there, check out our attitude swag, shirts, cups, stickers, and more. Again, that's www.thefallibleman.com.
I recently heard a quote that was just phenomenal, and it was, "If it was easy, what would this look like?" And it's just an incredible idea of approaching, life and decluttering, decomplicating it, and just going back to simplicity.
Yeah, because we're addicts. Every single human on the face of the planet is an addict. We have an addict mindset, which is the idea that we collect, we want something outside of ourselves. So when we complicate, it's the idea of obsession, the mind getting addicted to something. It doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. And so we get caught up in the idea that addiction is a guy with a brown paper bag or a needle. And the guy going to the gym 5 times a week and ignoring his family is an addict. The guy going to work 60, 70 hours a week and ignoring his family is an addict. The guy who gets in his car and disappears every weekend because he can't handle his family is an addict. We're all addicted. And when you simplify life and you remove a lot of the clutter, you're left with you. And then you see that. And you know what? Being an addict is kick ass. I'm an addict. Shit. That's what. So what do I do with that? I work on it. Now I'm out of that denial. I'm in that self-honesty. I'm addicted to work. I'm addicted to gym. I'm addicted to sex, to relationships. I'm addicted to people. I'm addicted to chaos. Some people are addicted to their kids. Find that thing inside you and then strip it away. And what you're left with is look in the mirror. And you do that by simplifying, because the things that you're doing, Brent, are beautiful and amazing to do. Just like me, like you look at my life, I just took it too far. So if I did the conservation, but if I simplified it, especially in the conservation world, when I went to war with the NGOs and the profit-making businesses over there, I'd have won. Yeah, but because I went too hard, too fast, I wasn't able to look at my behavior. I wasn't allowed to be honest with the fact that I was acting like an arrogant prick. I was here, I was a foreigner in Africa, telling Africans who'd been there 3, 4 generations that they were stupid or wrong. Now, on the surface of the facts, they probably were, but I wasn't doing it in the way that I was going to achieve anything long lasting except make enemies. So it is that same mentality that when we do the things we do, we don't want to stop being who we are. Our values and who we are at our core is freaking beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But we do, with people like you and I, need to just sometimes take and it's about the breath, man. Take that big gut breath in and go, am I going too fast here? Am I ignoring what's really important? Which is, for me, am I ignoring my stepson because he's had a bad weekend with his dad? Am I ignoring my partner because I'm focused and freaking on about money and the business not succeeding? And then going, whoa. Where am I? I'm right here right now. Go and give her a hug and tell her you love her. Go and do whatever it is you may need, because the things that drive us and that we're passionate about, they're not going anywhere. You're not going to change your fundamental core, and your passion will still remain there. And then what that moment of coming out of it and not going guns blazing and head down full first like I have in my life allows you to be a little bit more relaxed and at peace with what you're doing. And you tend to find less control. And, we talked about it when I came back on, we end up in flow. Mm-hmm. And when we're in flow, my humble opinion of flow is in God's purpose, or in the universe's purpose, or the source's purpose, or whatever word you're comfortable with. The flow is just your letting go of control that the human mind demands. The mind wants to know and wants to fix and wants to have a set goal and wants to know when and wants to know how. God's like, no, man, trust me. Trust me. You're alive. You got up this morning and you sucked a big breath in and you got out of bed and you're here. You still got your choices. I haven't taken those away from you. So choose to stay in this moment now. And when you, an hour later, when you've done the things that really matter, which is connecting with your family, with your colleagues, with someone who needs help, serving your community, then go back to that thing, because it'll be 10 times more potent and you'll be 10 times more at peace with the results and how it unfolds. But 100% addicted. And you said it. That's our first addiction, is to not stop moving.
Right. It's just,
And when we do stop moving, what do? TV remote, phone, Xbox. We do. Whenever we stop and we say we're at rest, actually not. And that's the funny thing about it, is we've created all this entertainment that is supposed to be restful, which gaming, TV, sitting on our ass in a lounge. It's not actually at rest, and you're not still.
no.
The entire body is still firing off. Everything is still going. You're actually sometimes less at rest sitting in front of a TV than you are going for a walk outside.
Well, you're less at risk for having to come face to face with yourself. How's that?
Well, it is. And this is why meditation for me, and people shy away from it, and I'm starting to do a lot of free classes here now with guys, is the key, the early key to it. Because when you're faced with yourself, you have nothing but self-honesty. When you're in stillness and solitude in your office or wherever it is that you choose to sit still, there's nothing but you. Yeah, you can't, there's nothing to distract you. You can't reach out and grab something.
You're going to rock some people's worlds, man. I'm telling you. It's
Thanks, brother. It's beautiful. It's humbling to hear it, because it's just me. And I don't have, I'm life experience taught.
well, life experience is one of the best teachers.
I believe it is.
You can educate people to an intellectual level, some with schooling, obviously, right? You can learn book intelligence, but book intelligence comes when you add book intelligence to life experience and then open yourself to the lessons that come in between.
Mate, beautiful. I say to people, knowledge is an incredible thing. We've got so much of it, we're drowning in it, but it's useless to it unless we practice it and it becomes wisdom. Because knowledge in action is wisdom. So you take all of that life experience and you actually do something with it, you act with it. Now you become wise. It's not a wise soul. If you sit in a room, a library, and you read your entire life, you are not wise. You're incredibly knowledgeable, probably incredibly intelligent, high IQ. Yeah, but you will not become wise. And that goes back to the Tao Te Ching, that goes back to the samurai. You need to put it into action. And by taking action, you're going to make mistakes. And that's why I said to you yesterday about the fallible man. The fallible man is a man who's made mistakes. And the fallible man is a man who's going to kick ass because he's learned from them. Being fallible is that ability to say, I've done it, I've been there, I learned. I might do it again even because I'm human and because that's what we do. But then I'm going to take the second time and I'm going to teach someone else, or I'm going to support someone else, or I'm going to help someone else. And I think that's, the beauty of what you're trying to do with the fallible man, and the beauty of, I guess, us talking about this sort of stuff is we shy away from our mistakes. We shy away from the errors, the bad relationships, the poor parenting choices, and the list goes on, the bad financial decisions. The reality is your power is in those mistakes. If you've got the strength to admit them and have the self-honesty to go back and go, let me have a look at that properly, you go, geez, I really cocked up there. That point was where I really went. I went left, and what was I thinking? You own it. You own it now, and then you get to go back and go, wow, man, I won't do it again. If you deny it happened and you blame everyone else, you don't get that right. When you point that finger out, you completely strip yourself of your power of choice. Gone. Because now it's everyone else's fault, not in your realm. And it's something we talked about, when we had a chat yesterday about that victim mentality. Victims are powerless. That's by choice, and it's choice.
I'm very big in my own journey. I mean, like the fallible man started with my journey, and that's one of the things I'm very into. Is like the more responsibility I take, the more ownership I take in my choices, my decisions, my past, good, bad, or other, the more I have the power to actually do something with them and to decide where I'm going and make my choices. Because if I own it, then I can do something about it. If it's just, oh, it happened, then I've got no power and it doesn't really matter what I do about it. So I can't fix my own problems. I can't get out of my own holes I dig for myself or anything else. And so I'm very, very big into just taking the power away from this. Oh, it's just, it's just the way the world works. It's just the way life is. I hate those terms. It's like, no, I made a choice. I'm going to make a choice, and I'm going to control where it's going. And there are some things that are outside of your control, but there are a lot of things that people want to say is just happenstance that really isn't.
Well, it's an excuse, I think. I think that that's become one of those little traits. And I think this is where, sadly, we've lost touch with spirituality / religion. You know, when everyone started to give up their faith, we lost touch with that. You know, we didn't have anyone to trust. So we basically stopped trusting entirely. And so now it became blame the state, blame the government, blame the president, blame the church, blame everyone. Blame the minority, blame the majority, blame the someone. And now we're living in a world, and I'm going to say mainly the first world that does this, but even the third world starting to struggle because of the TV that we're now pumping into the poorer parts of the world, with this idea that I'm not responsible for my own life, that some magical, money is going to drop from the sky, or the government's going to hand me a bunch of money, or the jobs will be created by, or we've given up the responsible parts of our lives.
You said in one of your videos that you think that men are at a turning point. What do you mean by that?
Oh, this is a big one, man. It is, because it's huge, because I do believe, I think we've been vilified. I think we've lived with a lot of guilt. I think there's an ancestral set of guilt. We went through like 40 years where basically, even though we're still in charge of business, we're still at the top of most things, we had the finger pointed at us. Women went on this massive revolution of freeing themselves and getting these rights that they earned. And what happened is we had ours taken away, because every time we tried to stand up, someone pointed at us and said, you can't do that. You're responsible for colonialism. You're responsible for the financial crashes. You're responsible. Men are vilified for everything. And, maybe rightly so 40 years ago, but right now we're not. Right now we're the builders of the future. And this is not to take away from women being part of that process, but it's about men taking part in their role as the protectors and the nurturers of the communities. If we don't now choose to let go of that past, if we don't choose to own who we truly are, and that is the fallible parts of us, guys. This is not just about the strength and the power, and I'm the almighty creator of my destiny. This is about owning the selfishness, the manipulation, the lies, the bad choices, and I'm going to honestly learn from these openly, and I'm going to share this so that the people around me can do the same. Then we get to grow. Right now we're stagnant. Right now we're making this choice to put our heads in the sand, deny who we are, deny our faults, deny our mistakes, and we're just running headlong into the future. We're putting our heads in phones, heads in TVs, heads in gaming, working more, and disconnecting from the reality of the now. And that is where human beings having an experience which requires us to stop and be honest about who we are. You're going to say, why? Why would I do that? It's painful. I don't want to go back into my past. I don't want to look at my mistakes. Why must I dig up and dredge that up? Because what you don't deal with, you pass on to your kids. Now, this is why I think it's responsibility, and I think men need to take a real good listen to this. We are the center pivotal energy point in a home. If we don't have our shit together, the home's not a happy place. Mum can't carry everything. So if we don't take ownership of that presence in that house, that radiates out to the next door and the next door, and our community suffers. When we get our house right, the next door can see as an example, man, look at this guy, he's got his act together. What does he do? He's grateful. He lives simply. He's a man of peace and stability, not a weakness, of stability. Watch him out there playing with his kids, even when he's on his way to work. When he gets home, he's tired, still out there playing with his kids. Doesn't play the victim. On the days when he's really struggling, when it's really tough, takes a big breath in, pulls his shoulders back, and he keeps going, and he goes twice as hard. Because we're men. That's what we're physiologically built for. We are built for a challenge. Strip away all this modern technology and all this modern lifestyle and these big homes. We are tribal. We always were, and you can't remove that primal side of us. And so what we need to start doing is start realizing that we have a choice. And you can't go and hunt anymore like we used to, and we don't have this, the same gatherings. We're not required to be that same man, but you can still come back to being that center of peace. You still come back to being that center of a household, that when you're stable, when you're in that present moment, the mother of your kids, your parents, your sisters, your brothers, your general community around you is at peace. Yeah, and when we're at peace, at peace means free of anger, free of fear, free of resentment.
Tell
Now,
us.
if you listen, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead and finish.
if you free us of those things, you free us of the poisons of the modern age, because we've got everything we possibly need to live the most beautiful lives right now. And we're basically destroying that by choice. It's not the president's fault. It's not the government's fault. You wake up every single day. The president doesn't tell you how to behave. You choose how you behave. So stop looking to point up and up and up and over and across the neighbor and start looking at yourself. Start owning your choices and watch how that strength and that stability and that general steadiness in your life, your kids will start to react differently. Your partner will start to react differently. People will approach you and ask you how. But remember, you're going to need dedication and discipline. It don't come easy, but then that's what we are. We're men. Look at us. Put us in a war situation and look what happens. And not to use war, it's a terrible analogy, but what happens? We rise to the challenge. We become the best of the best. Not because of the killing and not because of that shit, but because we've got our brothers beside us in that tribal aspect again, connected to men. Yeah? We've stopped doing all that. You don't have to go to war to be connected to the guy next door. Yeah? You don't have to go and pick up a gun to get that brotherhood back. We don't, but we seem to think we do. And, you know, and this is why many of us aspire to join the military. It's why I always did. I wanted that brotherhood. I want that challenge. Well, we don't need to do that. We need to do that in our own backyards right now. Stick your head over and talk to your neighbour, invite him for a barbecue. You know, go and hold a meeting in a park where a bunch of fathers sit and talk together about being good dads. What was your parenting win for this week, and where did you fail? Can I help you?
Wouldn't life be a lot easier if we all just had a few more barbecues with our friends, our neighbors?
It would change everything. As simple as that.
Have a neighbor who, I mean, the guy, I'm not sure the guy could cook other than grilling. He had like 4 barbecue grills. Like it'd be snowing and he'd be in the edge of his garage with the door open.
It sounds like me. Good. Yeah.
But I mean, we turn him into block parties. It'd start out with him, and then it'd be like my wife and I joining him and his wife. And then pretty soon, like we got half the neighborhood in and out of the front yard. Anytime we did it in the front yard, if we didn't want somebody else to come, we had to go to the backyard. But we'd end up with like, half the neighborhood right there. And it's like, I don't ever talk to you otherwise, but we can have a beer, we can, throw something on the grill and call it good. And we have a whole lot more in common that way.
Yeah, you do. And we're never going to learn about people and what they need and how we might be able to help them by sitting at home looking at them through a window or waving to them as we drive off to work in the morning. And I think this is another discussion we could possibly have. And this is another thing I teach, this idea of connection. We are, whether we like it or not, connected creatures. We're not tigers who are solitary animals. We're wild dogs. We're pack animals, whatever you want to call it. We're lions. We are supposed to be connected. And that doesn't mean you got to like everyone. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about singing Kumbaya and hugging everyone at all. We're still individuals who have different needs and boundaries and may not like everyone. But we need to start learning to respect them even if we don't like what they're saying. And I mean, you guys, you're the greatest example of what can happen when division of opinion goes too far. You can not like what someone says. Really, you can despise it and think you're wrong, but you don't despise or disrespect underneath them as a human, because that creates division. And the more we divide as a species, the more look at what we're sitting in.
Oh yeah.
And we are at our best when we're at a block party. When everyone, regardless of what, where, how, and why, lets go of everything. And also it breeds the opportunity for honesty, where a guy can say, you know what, I'm struggling. I don't get this parenting thing. My kid hasn't slept in 4 days. The missus is screaming. What do you guys do? And then you give him that, go, mate, this passes. And you can take a breath and go, you know what, I'm not the first one. Because humans tend to think we're the only ones going through things. It's just me. Poor me. I'm the only one. And we forget that there's an entire world out there. And sadly, an entire world full of a lot of suffering. So for us in the first world, again, it comes back to that beautiful gratitude, that grateful moment as you crack a nice cold beer. That this is a piece of heaven.
Tell me about Catalyst and what you're doing with that.
Okay, well, look, Catalyst is just me. It's my coaching business. It's me. It literally is. I want to go into a big spiel. It's everything I've talked about. It's taking my 47 years of life experiences and offering them to people as inspiration. We live in a world that is full of fear and a lot of hopelessness. And what I do is I use my experiences to help people find their gratitude how to find the simplicity, how to overcome adversity. So if there's a trauma there that you think has got you gripped and you can't work with, has got you on your knees, well, it's not true. And people don't like me saying that, but the reality is if I can get through what I've got through in this 47 years, there's nothing that another human can't achieve. So I teach that. I do a lot of public speaking. I do a lot of workshops. And now more specifically, I've gone into a lot of men's work. And this is talking about what you just talked about, fatherhood issue. I'm realizing that as fathers, if we become more and more disconnected in a family unit, our kids are almost being raised fatherless. So even though dad is there, he's not truly there in a lot of homes. And so what I'm starting to do is work with fathers about how they can connect with their kids, how they deal with a baby. Because a lot of men can't handle a baby. The idea that it's like take that until it stops crying, until it can walk, and then you can chuck it over here and I'll be all good with it. The problem is those early bonds are created in that first 12 months. So I teach fathers about that. I teach fathers about patience. But I teach them more importantly and overlying the biggest thing for fathers is connection with their children, connection with their partners, and connection with their community. The example you gave of 3 fathers teaching another man is the greatest thing I can say of what I do. I'll work with groups of 7, 10, 20 guys and talk about instances like that where we try to rely or go back on those primal bonds of brotherhood, and give them some support and some guidance so that this idea that they're alone is vaporized, is gone. Because we're never alone unless we choose to be. And so that's what my aim is with Catalyst now, is to be a presence in my community, to be that peaceful presence. All those things I've talked about and, words, I live them. And that, I believe, for me, is probably a big difference between me and a lot of other people, and what I embody in Catalyst is I live these things. I'm not a mouthpiece. I've not read this stuff in a book. I created all of this from my own explorations and my own mistakes, my own moments of being fallible. That's where I found them. And I support people through those, as far as they need to go. I work with people all over the world from 3 months to 6 months and beyond, because I want to see people be the best they can be.
Guys, I don't endorse people very often, but just the side conversations that I've had with Aaron and this entire podcast, if you're looking for a coach, somebody to help you through, and you're tired of all the placating BS that you see advertised on the internet, reach out to Aaron, go to his Facebook. If you're on the video, it's on the screen. If not, it's facebook.com/Catalyst Coaching AUST. One word, guys, and it will be in the show notes. It will be in the description, whatever platform you're on. Go touch base with Aaron, guys. He's not going to hold your hand and tell you it's all okay, but he might just point you in the right direction.
I will, and I guarantee you one thing is I won't leave you. I don't leave people till they're finished. When I work with businesses, we remind business owners that your biggest commodity and the greatest thing you're ever going to have as a businessman is people. So this idea that we can just basically talk about things going to be all right. No, I require you to get up off your butt. I require you to do things, and I require you to take action. And that's what we need in the world right now.
Oh my goodness. Coach actually expects you to do something. You may break the internet with that one.
Yeah, no, and the truth is I probably won't make many friends. This is the problem with what I do. And the thing is I've got to stay true to myself, because I could switch and I could become like the rest of them, and I could sit there and become a glorified counselor and listen to your stories and tell you I'm going to hypnotize you and do all this. And I'm not taking away from anyone or slagging anyone. But the truth is your freedom and your salvation isn't in me. It isn't even his pot. It's in you. I'm the guide that takes you back to you. That is it. Yeah.
Aaron, if someone wants to find you other than the Facebook group, do you do any other social media or anything?
No, yeah, you can find me on Instagram as well. So that's Catalyst Coaching. If you search me there, YouTube channel, Aaron Young, Catalyst. You could find me through Aaron Young on Facebook. And no, I don't do websites, and I don't do promotion, and I don't do PR, because the truth is, I believe that God, the universe, brings the people to me. And, it's probably one of my failings that I don't believe in marketing. I believe in advertising. Marketing is manipulation. It's selling you stuff you don't need. I advertise because I believe I'm of value to people. The problem is I'm probably a little too shy with that, and I need to grow into it a little bit more.
I understand entirely. Aaron, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for spending time with us and sharing. Guys, be better tomorrow because of what you do today, and we'll see you next time.
This has been the Fallible Man Podcast, your home for everything man, husband, and father. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a show. Head over to www.thefallibleman.com for more content and get your own Fallible Man gear.